Good evening, everyone, and welcome into Energizer Park as St. Louis City has broken the 11-game win streak. They are winners today, 2-1 against the San Jose Earthquakes, and David Critchley's new regime starts with a W. I'm Matthew Rocchio. This is Will Braxton. We're bringing you the City Hub postgame live right now from Energizer Park, of course, brought to you always by our good friends at Hot Shots Sports Bar and Grill. All the games, all the time, home of STL sports fans since 1990. And, of course, DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. As we always do, initial first thoughts here as we finally get to talk about a City win for the first time in 11 games. Go ahead, Will.
Listen, it's fantastic to get 3 points on the board. It's fantastic to be ahead of Sporting Kansas City in the standings in the Western Conference.
I like how that's what we're focusing on. Okay, then.
Those are about the two positives you can take away from this match because, in my opinion, and I don't mean to break everybody's heart, it just wasn't a very good match. Overall, you're bailed out by a completely, not repeatable Simon Betcher PK that results in, obviously, Leuven's going to bury that. And you love to see that for him. It's very poetic, story-wise. It's great for Leuven. Klaus scores a goal off a complete goalkeeping blunder. I don't understand what that guy was doing. If any keeper I ever played with had made a mistake like that, he would have been running sprints till he died because you got to come out and smother that ball.
Not a great game for the keeper. The keeper was also the man who tackled Simon Betcher and led to the penalty kick that gave City the win. So, yeah, not a very good game for the San Jose keeper. Definitely contributed to St. Louis City burying 2 today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, it's happy-go-lucky. You take 3 points. I'm sure the vibe in the locker room is very good, but you have to remember that this is a long season and this is not a win that's a sustainable, recipe to continue to get more wins. So getting 3 there is good because there have been some matches where City felt like they deserved more and didn't get any. Yes. This time they deserved a lot less and got all of it. So fantastic. You'd love to see it. But can David Critchley and the St. Louis City SC side find a way to get a consistently performing recipe going into the summer section of the season here? That's going to be the $1 million question going forward.
Jump into the chat here on YouTube. If you do, we will get it up here on the screen. We'll get into the conversation. Also, make sure you share, like, and subscribe here to Sports Hub STL, going live after every game, including every City match like we are today. Nothing is different about this team. They turn wins into draws and draws into losses, giving up late goals. They can't count on getting lucky with late penalties every match. That comes from eggplant emoji. Yes, did they get a little bit lucky to a point today? Yes, there's no doubt about that. But you have to start looking at the things that this team needed to improve to start winning games. And while I think locking things down in the second half is certainly something things are going to focus on, I think that's probably a little bit of an overwrought conversation. Clearly, they made some moves that were both defensive and offensive to try to control the game and shut things down in the second half. And for the most part, I thought they did that. The goal they allowed was a perfectly played cross from Leroux, an incredible play by Joseph Martinez. The man's won an MVP in this league. We know why. Baumgartel's all over him when he scores that one. And so if you talk about the issues, we didn't necessarily see the defensive issues we saw creep up or cause the issues or cause the goal for tonight. And on the other side, one of the biggest things that David Critchley talked about, if you want to hone the conversation down from this wide spanning umbrella conversation about the offense not being good enough, let's hone it down to why the offense wasn't good enough. I know a lot of people want to talk about style and player roles and positioning and things like that. Sometimes you're just not very good with the ball in the box or you're not very good at getting the ball into the box. And that has been City's biggest issue. Tonight, 33 touches in the opposition's penalty box. The only other game where they've had more than 30 was the very first game of the season against Colorado, where there were no issues with the offense. We thought things were going to be pretty peachy keen under the Olaf era, and obviously things did not go that well. And there's been a couple games in the 20s. There's been a lot of games in the high single digits or low teens. That was the biggest change tonight. The reason why the Bescher goal is, for me, not something I want to harp on because, yeah, you're right, it's not sustainable in any way, shape, or form. But the difference is that you got that goal because that Bescher touch was touch number 33 in the box, not touch number 14. Right. If you always give yourself more chances, this is how the phrase we create our own luck. This is how it comes to pass. When good teams create their own luck because they create more chances in the best areas. That's finally what City did today, and it paid off.
Yeah, I completely agree. Obviously, you're going to get more opportunities to score goals when you're putting yourself in positions to get those opportunities. So St. Louis did do a little bit better of a job than we've seen in some matches That also, in my opinion, is a large part of having a little bit of a healthier roster, and specifically having Edouard Leuven.
Yes,
because
helps.
I would be willing to bet that out of those 33 touches in the box, I would bet that 3/4 of them were as a direct result of something Leuven did or Leuven getting those touches himself. I don't think he had many in the box, but most of them were probably as a result of something he did, whether it was kickstarting the possession sequence and choosing the lane, or it was directly playing into the box like we saw in the Klaus goal, although that wasn't really in the box.
Yes, to your point. There's no doubt about that there. Edouard Leuven leads the game with 13 passes into the final third. That obviously isn't the opposition box, but he had 13 passes into the final third. That led the entire game. That also led St. Louis City. The next closest person on St. Louis City was Joseph Zielinski with 5. There were 3.
He's the quarterback. He's the whole start of the attacking sequence, and that's the thing that you were missing prior to this match. And without Leuven, you don't win this match, quite frankly. You just don't.
Yeah, there were 4 players on the Earthquakes between that. Max Anthony Kay had 5. Max Floriani, we know him, had 6. Nick Lima had 7, and Reed Roberts had 8. So 13 passes into the final third, 3 chances created. Only player on the City roster to create multiple chances, only player in the game to create more than 2 chances. Edouard Leuven was fantastic. He has been an incredibly important player since they hit the ground running that very first game. That obviously hasn't changed at any point of the season. It would have been the case had he remained healthy remained available for this season. And obviously getting him back now, it's a huge factor for St. Louis City. He's going to be a big part of this game. And already proving one of my tweets from this week wrong. I honestly thought that getting Totland back would be a bigger deal because of the difference in quality. But clearly, there's just, if you're a certain player and you play above a summit, you are irreplaceable. And despite the fact that Thomas Ostrak and Alfredo Morales and Marcel Hartl, when he stepped back, the fact that all those guys are probably better players than the guys stepping in for the next part of the depth chart behind Totland at right back or right wing back, Leuven just hits a certain level where it doesn't matter how good the backup is. The team is different, and the team is worse when he's not there. And there's a certain noticeable jump when he's back in there and he's back in his game and he gets 90 minutes with the City 2 team, so he's actually feeling himself and he's healthy. An unbelievable performance from Edouard Leuven, one of the most earned man of the matches of the season.
Yeah, and I think that'll definitely earn him a spot on the team of the match day as well, whether that's a starting or a bench spot. He did score, and they love goal scorers to be in the starting team, so he'll probably get the start there. And that'll be really good to see for Edouard Leuven, and it'll help the confidence of this team because when you have leaders coming back and immediately putting in great shifts, obviously you have Henry Kessler coming in at halftime, putting in a good shift as well. We know that he's a good leader on this team and really the backbone of the entire defensive block of this team. So when you have guys coming in and doing those types of things, it's a really good way to get momentum. So the question that really comes out of this is, are City going to be able to keep this going? And I mean, are you going to bet on City in the next match? That's going to be the question going forward because you have some players coming back or some players are back. Maybe Kessler's available to start this time. Maybe Tottenham's available to start, but you're playing Sunday night soccer in a hostile Portland Timbers environment, one of the hardest to play in the entire league. And you're on West Coast time. It's a 2-hour time difference, but you get a full week's recovery. So where's your money going, Rock?
That's a tough one. I'm going to have to lean on a draw right now. Portland's going to be a tough matchup. And, I mean, it's going to be hard because if you got a healthy Totland, a healthy Edouard Leuven, you won't have Conrad Valem, obviously. He gets the late red card, which means he will not be available for next match's game. He's been a crucial player. He was fantastic tonight playing multiple roles, multiple positions. So the loss of Valem makes me think we might see it drop down to a draw against Portland Timber. I think that's where I'm feeling comfortable.
Yeah, honestly, I agree. I would be willing to potentially put a bet. I'm not betting on that match, to be quite honest with you. There's no way I would be willing to put a bet on that. But you know who would? Probably Eric Sontag with Domesticated Gamblers. He will be your kind of go-to guy with Sports Hub STL, getting lots of picks for all your sports betting needs on Sports Hub STL. So definitely check him out. But I don't think I'm going to bet on that match. Personally, the draw seems scary. And a win is not probable.
Well, you can follow our friends with the Domesticated Gamblers. You can also work with our friends over at DraftKings. Of course, the promo code STL Sports, DraftKings Pick 6. It's baseball season. It's officially underway, and it's time to step up to the plate with DraftKings Pick 6. It's a fastball right down the middle, which means you can use it to get big wins. Just select 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. Pick 6 is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. You can cash in with your baseball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code STL Sports. Again, that's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Cardinals are in action right now. They're actually leading the Rangers after getting mollywomped, but still plenty of time to get your Pick 6 in right now for the Knicks and the Pacers. I would be surprised if the Pacers struggle again going back home to Indiana. Take a points, rebounds, and assists more for Tyrese Halliburton. That's your starter for your Pick 6, and build it out from there.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, Will, really quickly, you talked a little bit right off the bat about not seeing too many differences. So break down a little bit for us the similarities and the differences you saw. Obviously, David Critchley talked about playing with a higher line. Winning our offense is our defense is going to be our offense, winning the ball up higher and therefore putting themselves in better opportunities, making sure they didn't get exposed on the back through any bad turnovers. What was your thoughts about the execution of a new city style under this new caretaker manager?
I think the biggest issue in terms of what we saw under Critch was just kind of not utilizing the width enough, especially at the start of the match. It got better as the match went on, especially when John De Silva came in for Toysher and made things look a little bit more like the traditional 4-3-3 that you'll see on paper. Getting a little bit of width out of those Pompeu and Silva profile players. So I thought that was a little better, especially in the second half. But overall, for me, the biggest issue that I have that I see as a recurring theme is this team slowing down in the 70th minute every time. And this time it wasn't a result of any kind of bad substitutions, in my opinion. I don't think there were any bad substitutions in this match at all from either side. And this is a thing that we've seen, when Mellberg was coached a few times subs were pretty bad, but a few times the subs were perfectly fine and the team just fell apart at 70. And so this is kind of a recurring theme. And you're starting to get to the point of can you really put all this stuff on Mellberg? And if these same negative patterns, such as being unable to progress the ball from the middle, the defensive third into the middle third effectively, because that was an issue. A lot of possession sequences, they tried to get to the middle third and just a lot of turnovers there. But when they did get to the middle third and control the ball, they were actually able to progress to the attacking third this time, which was kind of new. But the struggles of getting to the middle third, I felt, were still pretty prevalent. And so when you have those two themes that a lot of people complained about under Mellberg and, potentially got him fired, those are starting to reoccur immediately after he's relieved of his duties. And you have this completely different game plan, allegedly, for this match. You start to get all these questions of, should you have fired Olaf Mellberg? And was that the right decision? Who's going to come next? What style does that guy need to bring? And what does this team really need to do to be a serious playoff contender? Because obviously you got the 2-1 win, you got 3 points, that's good. But like we talked about at the start of the show, how do you build sustainability to continue getting 3 points going forward? Because this match was not replicable.
One of the big things you talked about there right off the bat, the lack of width. A lot of changes in the opening lineup, a lot of changes and things we saw differently throughout those switches that you also mentioned there. How much do you think the lack of width comes from playing Cedric Toysher at times a little bit out of place still on that right wing?
I think a lot of it, because it forces Celio Pompeu to drop a little deeper in his wing position, and he's not as free to get up the pitch. And so when Toysher's kind of in there, you get that 4-4-2 look a lot of the time. And so with your wingers, they may be a little wider at times, but in transitional moments, that's supposed to be your high outlet, but you don't have that. Instead, you just have your target 9 and Klaus, and you have Toysher kind of floating around underneath him somewhere. And those are your 2 outlet options. So you lose a lot of the width in those transitional moments. And a lot of times with the extra defensive responsibility for your wing mids, they're unable to get high enough to contribute in those transitional moments unless the target 9 does an exceptional job to hold up the play,
which
like Klaus sometimes does.
I mean, he did it all day today. The hold-up play was incredible. I think one thing that City fans aren't going to harp on because they won the game, that if it had been a tie, I think would have been a very prevalent piece of conversation, was the amount of long balls and how much they relied on Klaus winning headers playing second balls and then moving things on. I think people are going to have a problem with it stylistically, but clearly it works. Clearly Klaus is good at it. Clearly they have players like Leuven who know how to dictate those long passes and drop them on a dime. They played a lot of long balls today. Not any necessarily more than they had under Olaf. It was probably about the same rate or so, but still a very high rate relative to what I think people were expecting to see, but it was successful. I don't think we're going to hear complaints about it, but it was interesting to me that we did see such a direct style of passing tonight, or today, I should say.
Yeah. Being an afternoon Saturday game is definitely different. I did enjoy it though. It was beautiful.
It was
very nice out. Warm. 2 hydration breaks in the match, which maybe you could say presented the stoppage time for both of the goals scored.
I don't get the stoppage time. Here's the thing. We're doing a shorter show today because we got to go here in a couple minutes. One of the reasons is because this game didn't end until past 3:30. Soccer games usually go 90 minutes. They usually take a little bit more than that with halftime and everything like that. But the fact this game took 2 hours, I think it's like by the watch, one of the longest City games of the entire year. But it's weird because we only got 4 minutes of added stoppage time in the first half, despite the fact that there was the Cedric Toyshirt injury, which is another player you might not have next week, by the way. The Cedric Toyshirt injury and a 3-minute water break, but there was only 4 minutes of stoppage time. And then in the second half, there wasn't an injury. There was a goal. And then we get 6 minutes of stoppage time. There also was a water break. So I don't know who's doing the stoppage time math, but it confused the living hell out of me. I'm still a little bit confused. I don't know how. Official. I have no idea. I know who does it, but I'm just like I don't know who was doing it. I don't know what he was doing when he was supposed to be keeping track of the time, because I have no idea how that bent out. One final question here, looking at the lineup again. Your surprise and your reaction to Kyle Hebert not being even on the bench for St. Louis City today?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty bizarre. The Canuck truck has been reliable. If anything else, he's been reliable. He's been able to play 90 minutes anywhere in the back line if you ask him to. And so he has been reliable. And then you don't have him on the bench. You do have Josh Yaro on the bench. And I think any City fan at this point would argue that Kyle Hebert should, be priority over Josh Yaro anywhere on that back line. And so when you don't have Kyle Hebert on the bench, obviously the question comes up of what happened, because we also saw Rasmus Alm, who was in training this week, or at least at the start of the week. He's completely out with an injury. He was listed out on the availability report, but this time Kyle Hebert was not listed as out. So it's definitely interesting to see what happened with Hebert. And I think that's part of the reason that we saw Chris Durkin slot in at the center back position. And I have my own opinion about that. I'm not a huge fan of it. I know a lot of people on social media were talking very positively about it. I didn't like it because I think it brings a lot of Durkin really wants to get up.
Yeah, he does.
And it presents a lot of 3-on-3 situations.
I think he did a fantastic job tonight of pulling that back and saying, I know what my role is going to be. When I'm in the midfield, it calls for a box-to-box thing, and maybe I'm not great at timing which times to go box hard on the offensive box. This time you take away that discussion, and it's other than after an 18-pass sequence, stepping up and firing one a little bit over the bar, because everything's pushed up, you know what your role is. I actually really like what we saw from Durkin, and I thought he was great.
I was really hoping we were going to get another Miami Golazo from
fantastic.
That would have been so phenomenal. We all watched him step up, and we were like, oh, and that would have been good stuff. But with Durkin, the thing for me is just when he's up high and we get those 3-on-3 situations, City should have been punished. We talked about
that's fair. There was a couple moments.
City didn't necessarily deserve all 3 points because their 2 goals weren't really repeatables. It was bad goalkeeping mistake and another sort of bad goalkeeping mistake, and kind of just Simon Betcher doing what he does sometimes and just making something out of nothing. So, kudos to them for scoring those goals, but they're not repeatable. What was repeatable were the numerous defensive breakdowns that were repeated over and over and over and over and over and over in this match that led to a ton of shots. Roman Berkey had to come up with 3 pretty big-time saves in this match.
Those are the risks you're going to take when you play this style, though. I just think that I think people weren't okay with that, under Carnell, and I just think sometimes that's the style. If a player turns it over, you're going to be exposed to the back, and they were able to close things down, and it didn't bite them. But there definitely were some areas that got exposed. But bottom line, Henry Kessler played, Thomas Totland played, and Edward Leuven was the player of the match. So when you get 3 of your best players back and they play like that,
your DP striker scores.
Your DP striker scores. You get 3 of your most important players back, and all of a sudden things look a lot different. It's funny how that works, isn't it?
It is funny how that works. We'll talk about that more sometime soon with the implications of what all that means, and maybe was the trigger pulled a little bit prematurely on Olaf Melberg, but that's a conversation to have.
I was consistent. I wanted to see one game where you had all three of those players, especially Leuven, Totland, and Kessler, and they all played very solid tonight. Totland was used on both sides. Didn't have a huge impact, but he was solid. Kessler was great coming in the second half for Durkin. They were able to switch things around there. Wallum stepped up in the midfield. Thought he had a solid game, but we're going to finish things up here on City Hub Postgame. Before we go, though, I want to tell everybody one more time about our friends over at Hot Shots, the 35th anniversary party coming up, the parking lot party. Tomorrow, it starts at 12 p.m. Get out there. The Yankee Stadium's a Hot Shot, the original location out there in St. Charles. Parking lot party. Our friends Rizzuto and Rafe are going to be out there. The darts tourney starts at 12. The bags tourney starts at 2. And, of course, you eat 10 Hot Shots tacos in the quickest time to win tacos for a year. Also, you can talk to Celio Pompeu and Thomas Toland, who are going to be slinging drinks out there, STL City Celeb bartenders. So get out to our friends at Hot Shots tomorrow. Again, starts at 12 p.m. Celebrate 35 years of Hot Shots. It's going to be an incredible time. I'll be out there. Get on out there. Giveaways, free samples, of course, the incredible Hot Shots wait staffs out there, and all the other things you see there. Prizes all day, sample teams, Louis, Bushwhacker, Celio Pompeu, Thomas Toland. What else do you need? Oh, yeah, remember, I told you. Darts, bags, tacos. What else do you need? Get out to Hot Shots tomorrow for that 35th anniversary party. This has been City Hub Postgame live on Sports Hub STL, presented by our friends at Hot Shots and at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. St. Louis City closes out with a 2-1 victory. They have broken, finally broken the 11-game winless streak as they finally win this one, and that means we're going to wrap it up here. Stay tuned to City Hub Postgame and Sports Hub STL. For this week, we're going to have a midweek pod coming out for the first time, and it's not just because David Critchley is here. We were planning for it last week, and then everything blew up. So midweek pod will be coming out this weekend. It will also be broadcasting live on the new KLIS on Friday afternoon, so stay tuned. More City Hub coverage coming to you on Sports Hub STL. Have a great night, St. Louis.